Hi everyone, it's Mr. Sinti, and I'm so glad that you were able to reach this video. um, it's freshman orientation week, and I thought I'd make this short video. Maybe it's not going to be so short, but I thought I'd make this video to sort of ease you into understanding what is going on in honors biology this year for you. And the intention is not only to go over the course description and show you where our class website is, but I think it might be best that we do it this way. And so you're going to find this year in honors biology that a lot of this content or direct instruction, in other words, like me standing up in front of you, going over like grading policy or some announcement or covering material, all of that can be better served on an individual basis. Like, for example, you watching this video. In other words, if you ever wanted to reference something, you could like view the video again, or you could pause it. But when we're actually in class together physically, I want the class to be a little bit more than me just sort of going over material with you. And I think you're going to find that that to be a lot more entertaining, a lot more beneficial for you as a student if there's more of you participating, more of you collaborating, more of you doing experiments than me discussing. Although covering content is important. So it's just taking this material and just redistributing it to YouTube makes it a little bit easier for this to take place. So let me just go ahead and begin. So first off, my name's Ray Sinti, Mr. Sinti, and I'm really thrilled to be teaching this class. It's honors biology is one of the courses that I teach. I also teach physiology and AP biology and conservation biology. But I really like teaching the 9th grade because it's an opportunity to begin the pursuit of science. And so there's great responsibility. And so hopefully you had a positive experience with science in elementary school, and that'll continue. But if you've had like kind of a shaky start in science, I hope this will be an opportunity to change your mind and let me convince you. I will try to be as persuasive as possible, and my goal is not to just cover content and have you learn material, but really I'm going to raise the bar. My goal is to have you love biology and really enjoy your experience in the class, because in the end it doesn't really matter how much we cover. It's like if you love bio, you're going to want to continue to study it, and so you're hooked. And so that's going to be my ultimate goal. So here's the class, not just the class, but the school website. And the school website, if you could see it over here, let me point to it. It's sacredsf.org. And so I want to direct you. So say you're at home and you just have your new iPad. I'm going to go up to this button up here. Do you see the Google search? And what we're going to search for is the learning system or the learning website that the school employs, which is called Moodle. And so what you're going to do is you're going to do Moodle, which is Moodle, and see, it remembers that. So it's moodle.sacredsf.org. And so you're going to punch that in your little find button, and it's going to come up with this. And so you're on a Google search, Schools of the Sacred Heart Moodle, and you're like, yes, I shall choose this. And so when you click on that, see that now this is a little bit of an issue because it remembers me. These are my 4 classes that I teach, but say you're doing this for the first time. What will appear in your screen is something. Let me click on all courses. Let me click on that. And so this is Convent Elementary, a Convent High School, the boys elementary, and the boys high school. So if you click on CSH, Convent of the Sacred Heart, it'll give you a list of all the courses that we offer, which are located websites on this thing called Moodle. And so what you'll do is go up into the course, search for course, and of course it remembers because I've done this before, but you're going to type in honors biology and then hit return. And that's going to take you to this. Now, of course, this is me. This is a class offered at Stewart Hall High School. Don't click on that. So honors biology, and when you click on that, let's do that, and click on it, it'll take you to this. And this is our class website. Let me move this over a little bit. This is our class website. And so let me just go over, and the intention of this video is to go walk you through this a little bit so that the first day of class isn't me just covering this. You can watch it ahead of time. It'll put you in an advantage position. So first thing, just going down the list here, do you see where it says grades? When you click on the grades, this window will pop up, and it looks kind of weird because there's nothing over here. It's a big blank sheet of paper, and that's because we haven't had any grades yet. But what this will be, well, it'll be a mirror of my grade book on my laptop. And so what you're going to do is you're going to select a class, and it's going to be like honors biology and the period that you're in. And then when you select that, then you're going to type in your last name and type in your password. Now, it's not a password that you made up, it's a password that I made up so that you can actually view my grade book. And you're like, well, where am I going to get that? I can either email it to you using your Google email account, or I can physically hand it to you in class. I'll probably email it to you, but nevertheless, you'll have it. At any time in class, anytime at home, anytime anywhere, on the bus, anywhere, you could access your grades. And so that's very, very important, because you could check to see how well you're doing, and it's important to always know your grade. The days of asking the teacher, like, what grade am I getting in the class, we're way past that. And so let me jump down. I'm going to skip where it says exams. I'll come back to that in a second. Course description. Let me go over that. So the course description, I'd like you to read this. And so when you're watching this video, you could pause it or then call this up and sort of take a look at this. But basically, this is a welcome to the class. And being that it's an honors class, there's a couple of additional requirements that you need to pay attention to. It's not so much that the class is so much more rigorous than the regular, though it is more academically challenging. It's more of the fact that if you're struggling in this honors class, and occasionally a student will have difficulty, what I want you to know is that if you're really, really struggling, in other words, you're getting scores that are below what you expect and what your parents expect, perhaps we're going to sit down and have a consultation about that. Because it's like, if I can make the analogy, if I'm a beginning volleyball player and I'm put on the varsity team, what's that going to do? It's like, I'm not going to learn how to play very properly. I'm going to be on the bench, and when I do go in, I might mess up, and the practices are going to be too advanced for me, and so I'm not going to learn. The team's going to get hurt. So the thing is, you always have to be placed in the appropriate class. And if it turns out that that this class wasn't the right class, there's another biology class that'll be more appropriate. And so the ultimate goal, remember what I said earlier, isn't how much material you've covered, but really that you feel that you're progressing at your possible potential, and you're feeling good about it, and that you really love the subject. And so I can tell you, having taught at Convent of the Sacred Heart for many years, I've had students that potentially struggle in the beginning, and then sort of gain their footing and turn out to be awesome, and they're like the best student ever. So no worries. But I just want to say that in order for you to remain in the class, and I want to keep you in the classes, we need to be keeping you at a B level. And so you have a chance to read this. And so if you're struggling in the class, maybe the other biology class is more appropriate. So most students in honors biology will be receiving either an A grade or a B grade, simply because. And so, all right. So if you have any questions about any of this, you can feel free to talk to me in person or to email me. And so, materials, what to bring to class every day. You should bring your iPad to class every day, because the iPad is going to be the sort of the main focal point of all things in honors biology. Contained on it will be class notes. Contained on it will be the textbook. And so we'll be able to sort of move between textbook and class notes very easily on the iPad. And so just wanted to point that out. And you're like, well, textbook. You mentioned textbook. How do I get the textbook? Well, what I'd like you to do before the first day of class is get the textbook on your iPad. And you're like, how am I supposed to do that? Well, as you can see here, you need to visit the Apple iTunes store, and I happen to have it right over here. So all you need to do is call up iTunes. And so there it is. This is the main homepage of iTunes. You're probably familiar with it. So check this out. Under Books, I'm just going to walk you through this. When I click on Books, I don't know if you've ever purchased a book, but you can on iTunes. It's really cool. I recommend it. It actually goes into your iBook app on your iPad that's really cool. So look over here, over on this side. Over here, do you see where it says books, all categories right there? So what I'd like you to do is scroll down to where it says textbooks right there, and you click on textbooks. And then you will then scroll again, and you're like, okay, where is this? So life sciences is what biology is all about, the study of life science. And so you click on that, and this will give you a list of textbooks. And so our book for this class is called simply Biology. It has this red macaw, it's a bird, and it's made by the book publishing company Pearson. And so as you'll notice here, I've already downloaded this. So when you click on it, and the cost is $14.99, it's extremely reasonable. And in the first day of class, I'll show you what the actual paper hardcover book looks like. It's rather huge, and it's ominous and heavy. And so I don't want to bias you, but I think you'll develop the love of reading on the iPad. It's really good, and there's a lot of benefits. And it's an interactive book. I could talk forever about how awesome this book is, but I won't. But please download that and have that on your iPad for the first day of class. That'll be neat. Again, email me if you have any questions about that if it's not working out. Okay? And so now you have your textbook on your iPad. So Lab Notebook is something that is not going to be on your iPad. It could. There are apps that can be pretty cool for labs, like in other words, taking down data and making graphs. But I kind of feel that my take on this is that a real biologist, which is what we're trying to become, is still taking notes. She's still in the lab taking data down, and conventionally, meaning like Lab Notebook. And so I'd like you to have this Lab Notebook by the first day of class as well. And you're like, well, how do I get it? Well, click on that link, and it'll take you to Amazon, and this is the book. Now, don't feel compelled to buy it at Amazon, but it's convenient. I feel like it's the cheapest price, but you can shop around. Most important thing is that it's quad ruled, which means that they're little boxes, and so that really helps for data tables and graphs. Okay, so I hope that's pretty clear. So purchase that. So there's two things that you need to purchase, which is your textbook and your Lab Notebook. Your class notebook. Now this is a little tricky, and I'll explain this more when we get into class, but your class notebook, I don't want to like tie you into technology completely, but I've found that you can really take some awesome notes on your iPad. There's some really cool apps. One's called Notability, another one's called iAnnotate. And we could sort of like develop that. And you're like, well, I feel more comfortable taking class notes on paper, in a spiral notebook, in a binder. That may be fine, and we can talk about that. But maybe one of our goals is to embrace new ideas and new technologies. And so this is kind of exciting. And so we'll talk more about how to take notes in class, but that's an important thing too. So grades, I showed you where to check your grades, but how do grades get determined? Well, things that you turn in class, all the work, all the homework is graded and it's returned to you. Also, we have quizzes and we have exams and we have a final. So all of this in labs, and all of this is sort of perhaps predictable. I'll talk to you again in class about how we're going to turn some of this work in. I'm feeling that in the very beginning of the year, I'm going to collect good old traditional like paper thing, and you're going to type the assignments and you're going to turn it in. We have a little homework tray. But once you get a little bit more comfortable, our school has adopted Google as the main thoroughfare for all things. And so you might be familiar with Google. There's some awesome potential there. In other words, documents that you create can easily be shared with me using Google Drive, and then I could take a look at them and then just give it right back to you. And so it'll prevent the need to print things out. And so that's going to be the way we're going to roll in the class. But I don't want to start with that just simply because it's a little shocking coming to high school and it's like all this technology. It's kind of wacky. So don't worry about that, but we'll be rolling out Google Drive and you're going to love it. It's going to be good. So how is my grade determined? Well, again, If you wanted to know when tests were, you can click on this link, and let me go ahead and do that. There's two ways to get to when the test is. Either this link right there, which will take you to it. In other words, let me scroll down here. Now, you're partitioned either in D period or F period. And so D, what's up with the colors? Well, red means that D period is sort of meets on Mondays and Wednesdays, sometimes Friday, and F meets on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So that's the blue and the red. And so as it turns out, this is a accurate list of when our exams are in the class. And so the very first test, if you're in D period, is September 9th, and if you're in F period, September 4. And so this is a list for the whole semester right there. And you're like, well, it's pretty handy. And I'm like, yes, it is. But the thing is, let me go back. It could be found in a couple of different places. Like, for example, let me just do this. I'll go back here. This is the main page of the class, if you remember this. Do you remember this link where it says Honors Biology Exams? If you click on that, it'll take you to that list as well. Now, what's new this year, I was mentioning Moodle, which is where our class web presence is, but Google actually also has calendars. I think you might be familiar with this, but just in case, there's a new freshman testing calendar, and I took the liberty of, check this out, and all of you have this. I've added and populated this. So you see where it says freshman testing calendar? So every time we have a test in class, you'll be able to see it on Google Calendar as well. So there's a couple of places where you can see this. Now, of course, you can simply ask me in class. I'll be here to help you. But it's kind of nice to know all the quizzes and tests are on your Google Calendar and are also on the website. So I think that's kind of neat. Okay, so let me go back to course description. I'll continue our discussion of that. If that link is going to take me there. Maybe it doesn't want to take me there. Let's see. It's thinking about it. Okay, so I'm not sure why it's thinking so much about this. Oh, there it is. Okay. So we'll scroll down here. Now, as far as percentages, what percentage would be your grade? It's fairly traditional, so I'm not going to go too slowly over this, but it's like 90 to 100 is an A, like that. 80 to 89 is a B. The thing is, this is a little unusual. The C grade is rather generous, meaning it goes from 60 all the way up to 79. And I find that that's more appropriate given the difficulty level on exams. I found that students who are working really hard and studying and sometimes miss a few questions, it's sometimes a little deflating to get a too low of a score. And so obviously, maybe you're not happy with the C, but you're not like chin in the chest, surrender, white flag. You still keep hope alive. And so I find that this is more appropriate for the course. And so, again, most of you will be getting A's and B's in the class. The final exam, I know here I am talking about the final exam before the first day of class, but the final exam will be cumulative, meaning everything that we've covered in the first semester will be on the first semester final. But in the second semester, it's just second semester material. Now, homework, this is important. Homework, all homework needs to be typed. So everything you do, whether it be taking notes or turning in something, is going to be typed. The only exception to that is when you're actually handwriting stuff into your lab notebook. Then you'll actually use a pen or a pencil or whatever, colored pencils to make it nice. Everything else is typed. Okay, so this is the format. You'll put your name on the left. Okay, so this is a model of it. So name on the left, honors biology, including the period. That's important because, again, the very beginning of the class, I'm not always together clear where you are, whether you're in D or F, but I'll eventually get to that. The date that it's turned in, so the due date, and the name of the assignment, very important, very, very important, these four things. Now, over here on the right side, if your homework has more than one paper, then you would include your last name and put like number 2. And if there's a third sheet, your last name and number 3. So just in case something gets torn off. Now, we're going to have to adopt a different kind of modality for turning in papers when we go to Google Drive, because the title of the document needs to be very clear in terms of what it is so that I'll be able to sort through those properly, but we'll talk later about this. Okay, so paper standards, you're like, well, what's the format? It's pretty standard. I don't know that you would even do anything other than just your default on your Word or your Pages or whatever you're using to write, but it's pretty traditional. Okay. Now, as far as like rules in the class, let me go over a couple of important ones. Then you can ask some questions if you need to later. Makeup work. Okay. So say you were sick and you were ill and you had to stay home from school, or you had to miss class for a field trip or something like this. If you're missing class, the expectation is that you do not need to turn in that missing work the very first day back. So let me make that clear. If you're sick at home, the thought is that you should be, in my opinion, you should be getting better and not stressing over completing homework while you're sick. You should just take care of yourself, get better. So then when you come back to class, you need to then meet with me, find some time. You can email, but it's better in person, and say, hey, Mr. Sinti, I've been sick for 2 days. I missed this and this, and when do you want it? And then I sort of give it back to you and think, well, you've missed work in other classes. When can you turn it in? When can we make up that exam? And so basically, long story short, the work is due on a one-to-one basis. I try to tailor when missing work is turned in based on you, because it doesn't serve me any good, and it doesn't help you to say that it's due a certain day when you have a lot of work in your other classes. And so it's me trying to be respectful to you in terms of makeup work. So if you have any questions about that, we can talk about that too. Now, that's a big difference between makeup work, which is flexible, and late work. There is no late work. There's no late work in the class. There's no late work in life. When an assignment is due, it is due on that date, and if it's not turned in the beginning of class, and again, when things are on Google Drive, when it's not turned in by a certain amount of time, it'll be given a 0. And so there's no late work, and there's no partial credit, because the thought is you had enough time to do it. It's an honors level class, and you should do it. Now, here's how this works. If you're stressed out legitimately for a variety of reasons, say you have multiple homeworks due, or you have a test on that day, things are getting backed up, relatives are visiting, your siblings are bothering you, you have practice, you're tired, all these things, I really will try to consider all of those things. If you were to send me an email or talk to me in advance and say, hey, I see that we have the homework due on Friday and I'm really busy on Thursday, and can I turn it in on Monday or Tuesday? I would be willing to do that. I'd be willing to roll personally on a one-on-one basis when things are due with you if you have a legitimate conflict, but I will not accept any late work. Okay? So that's perfectly clear. Now, tardies, I'm not going to go really far into this except the fact that strolling into class late is totally unacceptable. It's disrespectful. It's not necessary. And so you need to be responsible to get to class on time. There's no bells. But we know when class starts because we have a clock. And so you cannot stroll in at the last second either. It's better to get to class a minute or two before we begin in order to settle yourself and get focused into the game, okay? And so there'll be consequences, I assure you, if you're tardy more than a couple of times. I will pull you aside. And perhaps tardy ultimately is a reflection of whether or not you're even capable of maintaining yourself in this honors class. And so I would recommend not being tardy to class. And so, but in general, I do welcome you to the course. It's great. And so you have a chance to take a look at this. And so one last thing to show you about the website, and then I shall see you on the very first day. Do you notice here the class is divided into 3 units? We're going to study ecology in the first semester, biochemistry, and the cell. You're welcome to look at this. Now, on the very first day of class, I'm going to just pick D period. Now, do you notice here, there every week of the calendar is listed below here. Now, like what's on here? Well, what we're doing in class that day. Let me just click on the very first day. So the first day of class, this is where it says topics. Here's the date. D period meets on Friday, the first week. So I'm going to go over some of the things that we're going to be studying with you and answer some of the questions that you might have about the course description. And so that's what we do in class where it says topics. Now the homework assignment is located at this point. The homework assignment is always due the very next time we have class. I find that that is the easiest way to do it so that it's not confusing. So there's no due dates written on here because the assumption is that it's due the very next class. I hope that's perfectly clear. And you're like, well, what is it? Well, when there's a reading assignment, it'll say like textbook chapter 3 concept 3.1. So that's your iBook. So you'd call that up and you'd read that. Now, I'll mention this a little bit more in detail in class, but when you're reading something in here, that also means it's a good idea to take notes on the reading because it's important. So what does it mean? Like, do you write down bold terms? Maybe. What I would do, and I'll talk more about this when we'll get into this in class, what I always like to do is, when I'm reading, is actually put down important points, but I also like to put down questions that I have about the reading. It's sort of notes to myself so that when I'm coming into class the next day, I'm going to ask those questions. And so it's sort of like, what do I not understand? And then, I don't know if that makes sense. When I'm reading it, what do I not understand about the reading? Because I need to have that clarified so that I can learn. And so that's stated here. And then, okay, this is important. Now, when it says reading assignments is something that you read and you take personal notes that are not turned in. Written assignment means that you are turning something in. And so this is the first homework assignment. Now it says to watch these videos. And then you're like, where's the video? Well, if you click on this, I'm going to go ahead and do this. If you click on this introduction to ecology right there, this is our first topic. It's going to take you to a YouTube video.
Some organisms.
And there it
really
is right there. Okay, so let me scroll it back. I've been watching this. Now, I took the liberty of making some content videos. And so instead of, and I mentioned this before, instead of coming at you in class with material, I'm actually covering some topics on YouTube. You're going to watch that for homework, and you're going to be taking notes. Now that you're going to be turning in. When it says written assignment, you're going to be turning that in. In the beginning of the year, it'll be either sentences or bullet points or what have you, but as the year goes on, I'm going to get a little bit more creative with these videos and have you make concept maps and have you do different things. And I'm going to embed them into a Google site with a Google form below that. But in the beginning, I just want you to sort of take outline notes as if we were actually in class. So it'd just be like class, but it's at home. You're like, wow, wait a minute. Class at home. What does this mean? Well, it's a type of educational philosophy that believes that when you're actually learning, it's an individual basis. It's like there's really no need for the whole class to be sitting there quietly listening to a lecture. Whereas when we actually are in class, like the next period, we'll be discussing the stuff that you watched at home. And it'll free up class time for you to participate as a real biologist, which means we'll be spending our class time in discussion and experiments. And so I think you're going to really enjoy it. And so you're going to watch that video and you're going to watch that video, Introduction to Ecosystems, for homework. And when is it due? Well, it's due the very next time in class. Had you had the assignment? Again, we talked about that. And you're going to print that out. It's going to be typed, and you're going to turn that in the second day of class. And so here, let's take a look at that. And so if you're in D period, which is a red day, so that you're going to meet on Monday, you're going to turn in those two. These are the things that we're going to discuss in class. I'm going to go over some of the questions that you have, and then I'm going to introduce you to the lab. And so we'll get started in that. And then here's the next homework assignment. And so it's all kind of spelled out. What we're doing in class, what the homework is. It's all spelled out on the class website. And I hope this level of organization will be very useful. Like, well, where are the labs? If you were to click this, it'll take you to a list of all the labs that we're doing in the subject matter of ecology. And these are some additional homework links if that be the case. So this is my welcome video. I hope you're excited. Now, I haven't said anything really about how awesome biology is, but I will, and you'll discover that on its own. But I think the class being organized, having a really systematic website, being able to determine your grade, knowing exactly when everything's due on the calendar, all of those, if you call, quote, logistical items, if all of that's organized, it'll free you to understand and enjoy biology that much more. And so that's my intent. And so welcome to Honors Biology, and I'm looking forward to a great year, and I hope that was helpful. Thanks for watching.